Change is not easy. Sometimes it is brutal. Radical change can be anticipated, even summoned, but difficult to control, to parcel upon arrival. Change happens biologically as maturation, and we are amazed and confounded by it when it happens, if we pause to notice it at all. Change signifies life and death, heaven and hell, happiness and devastation. So we are unassured, sometimes elated when change happens. Change happens by throwing hand grenades, signing marriage certificates, and riding on the uptown subway. I suspect this thing called change, the experience of it, the fascination of it, the fear of it, is what makes us particularly human. Love changes. Love is not change. Love is love. But the giving and getting of love, the enterprise of love, the journey, ministry, and mission of love is to bring change, to be changed, to grow change into the most human that is possible. A call to love is a call to change. Acknowledging the need for change is acknowledging the power of grace, mercy, compassion, a need for more love. To mature is to increase in the capacity of love. The call for radical, deep, life-affirming, life-death-dealing change is reaching out for Jesus. Will we reach out for Jesus? The one who brought salvation, the ones whose revelation we have yet to trust. Reverend Ratson, I have only had this experience one time before. When I read your book, I wished I had written it. The book that you write, that you have written, that you continue to write because it is unfinished, is a book that students hear from folk all the time, but they don't trust it because I'm not sure we believe it. So part of your challenge to us, your clarion call, is asking us, the very pilgrimage that you just described to us is, church, what do we believe? What do we believe? And if we don't believe in Jesus, say that. Right. If we do believe in Jesus, it's got to be more to Jesus than the personal salvation. That's important. What about the revelation? What about that? This is a call to say, what about the revelation? Right? Part of my duties at Drew was to recently attend a conference that was pulled together for faculty. It was a rare event. They called it a rare event. It probably was. A conference between scholars, district superintendents, and the bishop. Rare event, right? Usually the church does not get together with the educators. The scholars don't like practitioners, and the practitioners have little respect for scholars. And there are reasons why. So I'm not trying to fix that. I'm saying there are reasons why those are warrior camps. So we got together in the room, and one of the district superintendents told this story. The question that was posed to the group that we were in, a mixed votes between district superintendents and scholars, was, how can seminary education be better for what you do? The district superintendent said to us, we need better trained pastors. I said, say more. I don't know what better is. Right? Because we think we're busy. Clearly we're not doing a good job, but I don't know what to do differently, right? He told this story. He said, a typical scenario is the United Methodist Church used to have the luxury of sending people directly out of seminary to be associate pastors in churches. After being associated, mentored, having some experience, they would then at some point, 5 or 7 years, move into their own congregation and then go on from there. We no longer, for multiple reasons, have that luxury. So a typical pastor now leaves seminary, is now put in charge of a fellowship of people, real people with real problems, wanting to do real ministry, clueless. They are drop-kicked into this situation and are now left there, alone. We still have a model of aloneness, Lone Ranger ministry. Many times a person finds themselves in an all-white congregation that is now surrounded by non-white people. That all-white congregation has shrunken and shrinking resources. They get there, they stay there for a year or two, and now this district superintendent told us in this story. Then I meet with them, and they come back to me and they say, you know, some change is needed down there. The district superintendent said, how do you develop a system called seminary that prepares people and it tells them, you are the change agent. This is your job. Your job is not to go there and report back that change is needed down there. Dr. Rasmus has told us, Reverend Rasmus has told us, layperson Rasmus has told us, Rudy has told us. The choice now is, are you going to die slowly or are you going to change? Are you going to die slowly or are you going to change? The difficulty with this choice is that we're pausing and contemplating which one to do. There's something sick about that pause. There's something disturbed about that pause. There's a kind of possession and demonism about being able to pause at that kind of crossroads. To be a people to say Jesus and be a necrophiliac society, a death-loving, worshiping, death-mongering society is a necrophilia society. To worship Jesus is to worship life, not death. To worship Jesus is to yearn for life, not death. Why do we pause? Now, my students tell me, and they would be mad if I told you this, my students would tell me, we pause because we are afraid. We pause because we're betting that the church will not cease under our watch. They're betting that slow means not yet. Rudy's suggesting that slow ain't as slow as we're hoping it is. See, I agree with his analysis, with his triage. It's really, really bad. The situation is dire, and we're acting like we've got time to pause and decide. My students come not so much curious about Jesus and church and leadership. They come more curious about becoming better bureaucrats. Because although the word pimp tends to be a male word, I can thwart any system going too. Right. Why don't my students ask me those questions? Doc, how do we go around the system? To me, that's a question of ministry, not bureaucracy. They want to know, Doc, how do I be a district superintendent? A district superintendent of what? You'll be an undertaker and a pallbearer at most of the churches you serve. Pastor as pallbearer. Pastor as mortician. Your job will be to go down there and tag them and bag them. Not to go through churches. About even why we're in the place called seminary in the first place. Rudy brings clarity to that confusion. There is no choice, brothers and sisters. We have to choose radical change. We have to choose life. We have to. To choose slow death is to be faithless. Is to be a hypocrite. Is to be a society that may already be dead. Now the question is, will anyone care? And maybe if that's the answer, then maybe that's okay. I think the gospel, like Rudy, of love is still needed in the world. I think the gospel and the radicality of hope, where folks said, hope's not possible, is needed. I don't think there's any human being on the planet inferior to any other human being. And the gospel of Jesus Christ says that clearly. Right? So, Fred Smith and Rudy and Dottie and a whole bunch of people will get together soon and we will say, what does a new seminary look like? How do we train pastors to do service, to be servants, to be about self-respect? What would that seminary look like, taste like, smell? How do we gather people who say, I want to lead, and teach them how to thwart systems, because systems need to be thwarted? That's not what seminaries are set up for. Right? How do we set up systems and learning institutions on the margins to train people to stay on the margins? That's my question. That's what I would add to this conversation. Thank you.